Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. Today's Daf is Daf Samach Zayin in K'tubos. We look for Shleima, for Yosef Real Ben Chaim Michal and Elazar Ben Ruma. From the fifth line at the top of Samach Zayin, Tanya, Amar Rav Elazar Tzaddik. We were discussing the issue of Nakdima Ben Gurion's daughter, who, having lived through great wealth of her father, everything went down, and they lost everything, and she became poverty-stricken. Tanya Elazar Tzaddik, Arab and Chama.
Wasn't that Rav Akiva's father-in-law?
No, that was Kalba Sabua. So Amar Elazar, Arab, even that's also a that's not really his name. That was just an adjective name because it's Kalba Sabua, because whoever goes in hungry, like hungry as a dog, comes out filled, but it's a different guy. Amar Elazar, Arab Nachama. Like he was saying, I shouldn't see the Nachama, I shouldn't see the Gula in Lorisi, like it's a way of swearing. In Lorisi, I saw her, Shahaisim Laketas Orim, Ben Talfaces, I saw her collecting barley from under the hooves of horses. In other words, so poverty-stricken that she was collecting their garbage. Ba'aku in that city. Karosila, I called about, when I saw that, I read the pasuk. I said the pasuk fitting the situation because imlo tevi loch hayafa banashim tzeulach b'kveyatzon riskirosach al mishkros harim. So what does it mean? Imlo Torah, Rashi explains, if I don't follow your ways of the Torah, if I don't if I don't observe the Torah, if you don't observe the Torah, you beautiful among the women, you'll go out big feyatzon in the footsteps of the flocks, and you'll have to follow the animals, urias ketzach, and feed your kids there. Don't read it as your kids, your small goats, but rather as your body. In other words, if you don't follow the Torah, you'll be forced to eventually have to feed among the dung of the animals. You'll look for barley and stuff under cattle and sheep food. You'll be looking for food there among their dung, among their footsteps. And that's what we mean over here, because when you saw at the end of yesterday's stuff, when she was questioned, what happened to all your father's wealth? They didn't spend it properly, right? They didn't give it to tzedakah, and they lost all their wealth. We learned yesterday that in the Mishnah is that when he is given, when they write into the ksuba, when the Fanlan writes into the ksuba, if he writes in cash. So at the time of the Erisin, whatever, when they get together and they make the shidduch, if he gives them cash into the ksuba, so they raise that by a third. It really means raising it by 50%. So if you gave $100, you write in there that he's responsible for $150. It's a third out of the total amount. Why? Because that money will be spent, he'll invest that, and it's easy to make money. If you have money, it's easy to make money. So that's when it comes to cash. When it comes to product like vessels, clothing, things of that they write in, those they usually increase it by 20% more, so you reduce it by that. So if he says, well, I'm giving you vessels worth $1,000, in the ksuba he writes in, I owe you vessels of $800, because they assume they inflate that. So we see a difference between cash and versus product versus items. Now the Gemara is going to take off on that. Let's say she gave him gold into the ksuba. Her family, her father, wrote into the ksuba gold. What is gold like? So he says, it's worth its regular value. You don't say that since it's not cash, you reduce it by 20%, that they inflated. No, you write in its real value. If you gave gold worth $1,000, they write in the ksuba gold $1,000. That's what we're going to deal with now. Meisvei, hazavar epikalim. Gold is like any, or if you have golden items, golden objects, golden jewelry, it's like any other vessels. Apparently, my love because it isn't like silver, meaning that you, whatever they value it as, you assume that was inflated by 20%. So you write down in the ksuba 20% less. Isn't that what it means here? So what do you mean? You write its real value. You should reduce it by 20%. Isn't it my love kikelim shokesef the pachsi that get devalued? Lo kikelim shazov. It's like gold, the low pachsi. Gold doesn't get devalued as much as silver. That's what the Gemara means now. That's what it means. No, gold doesn't get devalued. So it shouldn't say like kalim, like all other vessels that get devalued. It should say, well, gold is different. Gold is like its own kind, meaning it's like vessels of gold, because if you say kalim stam means all kalim, all vessels, clothing, everything like that. I think that should be devalued from the value that they place upon it at the time of the shidduch, right into the ksuva, 20% less. So it should say kekela, va'od. And here's another problem. When you try to say that kela, that the gold has got its real value, whatever's valued at $1,000, you leave it at $1,000 and you don't reduce it. Tanya, we learn the following brisa. Zov harei kekalim. Gold is like kalim. Notice it says gold. It didn't say kalim of gold. He said gold is like kalim. Okay. Din rezov, if it's gold in coins, money, then a rank ksafim. That's like kesef. What do we say about kesef? That you up that by a third or by 50%, however you want to call it. Up it by a third, milabar. Harei ksafim. So if you give him $1,000, you would value it at $1,500. So that's gold coins. But gold itself is like kalim. Well, let's understand, what does he mean by kalim? We don't know yet. If a minig is that they don't exchange them. In other words, like you used to remember, just to give an example, remember when we were young, people had silver dollars. They probably don't make them anymore. There was a time when they had silver dollars and nobody would spend that dollar, right? You'd always put that in a collector's chest or something, right? You save those silver dollars or anything silver, right? In our time when they started diluting the silver with other kinds of brass and stuff like that. So if you had a real silver one, you would save it. So if you didn't spend it, if they didn't exchange it for other things, Shimon says, then Shamro so then you don't add. Shimon says, apparently going on Din Rezov is like Kesef, that you add on a third. Shimon says, no, if it's not used in exchange, it's not used as currency, you just hold on to it, then you keep it at its value. Now let's understand what's Shimon going on. Shimon, what's he going? Is he going on the Reisha when he says Zav Areu Kalim? Or is he going on Din Rezov, which we said is more like cash, which you add on 20, you add a third. If it's going on the last part, and what do you mean? Shmuel saying if a minig is not to use it for currency, then you keep it. So what's the Tanakama saying? Even you don't keep it at its value. Well, what do you think? What are you supposed to do if you don't use it as exchange? So how could you say Shmuel says what? Even if it's not used as exchange, you add 50%, but it's not used in exchange. In other words, the whole idea of adding on 50% we saw yesterday is because the chassan is going to take it and spend it and increase its value, invest, make money out of it. But if it's not spent, you can't make money out of it. So it doesn't make sense. It's going on the seifa. The ratio which said, gold, the Tanya says Zav is like Kalim. And what's Shmuel saying? The ratio, Zav, Kalim. My Kalim Kem Shekesef, meaning you devalue it by 20% because it was inflated to begin with. Shmuel Omer, no, Hareu Kedim Shozav. It's like cash. It's like golden coins. But Makim Shnag Shalol Fortam. Right? In a place where if you don't use it as currency, so it's not devalued by 20%, but it's like Shmuel was saying, gold is not devalued like kesef, like the Tanakama, but rather gold is like gold. It's like if you don't exchange it, it's like regular gold, meaning you keep it at its regular value. Fine, but what does the Tanakama say? We're assuming we'll go that the Rabbi Yochanan, who started off this member by saying that he gave him gold is kept at its regular value. It's not a coin, so it's not increased by 50%, but it's not like other vessels that are devalued by 20%. But here, the Tanakama is saying gold is what? Like Kalim, my Kem Shazol, Kesef. It should be devalued by 20%. So if Rabbi Yochanan is talking about regular gold, why do you say that it's kept at its value? It's like any other vessel, any other kalim, clothing, vessels, everything else that's devalued by 20%. The more is low. He's really going on the sefer. Shmuel is really going on the sefer. And the sefer that said, that the Tanakama said, Din Rezov, golden coins are coins. They're increased by 50%. And what is he speaking about? We're speaking about over here where these are not regular golden coins. Golden coins are only used, they're only accepted as cash, only with great difficulty. Here's Machlokas. Since the Tanakama says, look, golden coins, what did the Brisa say there? Din Rezov, it's like cash. You add on 50%. because you could use it as cash. Okay, not every place will accept it. Maybe the makola won't take it as cash, but if you take it to other bigger, larger establishments, they'll accept it as cash, right? If you take a silver dollar, I don't know if they even have them today, but if you showed up with a silver dollar at a big institution, they'd probably have to take it as a dollar, right? That's what means over here too. Whereas Shmuel says, since it can only be used with great difficulty, not every place will accept it. You don't increase it. So we're talking about golden coins. In other words, that's what you could say that Bryce is speaking about. So what do we have here? Let's summarize here. Rabbi Yochanan said that if you gave gold is not like cash, it's not cash. You don't increase by 50%, but it's also not like kalim, which you decrease by 20%, but rather it's kept at its regular value. So the Gemara said, what do you mean? We have a brisa which says Zav is like kalim. Kalim means it gets valued by 20%. It says no, it's a special kalim of Zav, which don't. So the Gemara says, why didn't it say kalim like its own? Don't say kalim stam, which means 99% of all other things, which are devalued by 20%. It should say like kalim of gold. That's one question. The second question was from the brisa. The brisa seems to indicate that Zav is like him. It is devalued by 20%, not that it's regular value. So the Gemara says, no, the brisa is not speaking about that. The brisa is speaking about a case the brisa is speaking about a case of gold. The Rav Shapiro is speaking about gold coins. That he's talking about gold coins. That he's arguing with the Tanakama when it's only used with great difficulty. Only with great difficulty. So that's one answer, right? So the point is that when the Tanakama said in the Reisha that when the Tanakama said he's going on the Seifa, Rav Shmuel is arguing on the Seifa, we're talking about gold coins. But when the beginning of the Mishnah says Zav Hareu Kekalim, we can't tell really what that means. Kalim in what sense? It's like Kalim of Zav, Kalim, we don't know for sure. It says Iboy Sema, or I could tell you Masav Lo Nafka Yichat. Or Iboy Sema, or I could say Klub Shmuel. The whole Bryce is really not that Shmuel is only arguing the safe. The whole Bryce of Shmuel is missing. Zav Harei Kalim. Zav is like Kalim. Dinrei Zav Harei Kiksafim. Zav is like Kalim, and maybe Kalim means its regular value, full value. $1,000 of gold's worth $1,000. That's right in the exhibit. Dinrei Zav golden coins is like cash. We add on 50%. That's only when it's used as currency. You could use it. But if you can't use it as currency, and it's like Shmuel, like the words of Shmuel, if the minig is that these gold coins are not used in exchange, not used as currency, so it has special value. And that's how, and that goes along with Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan said gold is different. Gold is not cash, and gold is not kalim, which are devalued. Gold is its regular value, and Rabbi Shmuel, in fact, is saying it. So the Gemara says, again, when Rabbi Yochanan started at the $2, and it's like its value, right? The Brisa said, it's like Kalim, isn't Kalim Stam, which are devalued? So Kalim shows off. But if that would say that don't get devalued, so it just say Kalim, and you didn't say that, so that's still a kasha. Because we have a brisa which says that Zav is like Kalim, and Kalim means Kalim Stam. That's still a kasha. That's still a bit of a kasha. Like Marsa's kasha. Okay, that's a kasha, but it's not the end of the world. Because you could say when the brisa said, the first brisa said it's Zav Harei Kalim, it means Kalim of Zav. It doesn't mean Kalim of Kesef, which is Stam Kalim. Okay, that's a bit of an answer. But at this point, we're saying Rabbi Yochanan still says that if you gave Zav, real gold is like keeps its regular value. Gold, holds on to its value, and it's not inflated, not deflated. Whatever you mark it, that's what it is. And the brisa that talked about the Tanakama there, it's the brisa Zav Harei Kalim, Dinrei Zav and Kiksafim. That's Dinrei Zav. Talking about Dinrei Zav, if Shmuel else is one way, or the whole brisa Shmuel, gold coins are like coins, like cash. And if they're using currency, you can add up by 50%. If not using currency, they still maintain their value.
We don't care about appreciation. That goes to her, that's fine. In other words, gold can go up in value dramatically, but we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that, no. We're talking about only depreciation or cash. In other words, if it's cash, we assume it's worth that he's going to use it and spend it, and he's committing himself to 50% more, or 50, or a third out of the whole thing. He's committing himself to that in the case of cash. That's what we saw yesterday. But if it's non-cash, then they inflate it at the shidduch, by 20%. So in the ksuba, he writes 20% less. Here today, we're dealing with a new thing, gold. What do you do with gold? Is gold. If it's coins, then it's like cash. If it's not coins, so we have this debate. Rabbi Yochanan says if it's just regular gold, it doesn't get devalued. It's 50. It stays at its regular value. That's what he writes in the ksuba. Of course, it could appreciate in real life. It could appreciate or depreciate. But the question is, what's his commitment to in the ksuba?
What appreciates, we don't care. That's fine.
We don't care. Even if it depreciates, we don't care. The question is, what does he have to write into the ksuba? What is his commitment? When receiving kalim, he has a commitment of 20% less. Receiving gold, we're saying here is a commitment of full value. What do we mean by that? Dava pricha means large gold, gold pieces of gold. Rashi explains, Rabbi Yochanan talks about maintaining its value. He's talking about large pieces of gold. The Mishnah is speaking about small pieces. Dava pricha means small pieces. So when the Mishnah says that hazav areim kekelim, this will answer the kasha of kelov, right? If it's small like gold dust, small pieces, that's like other kalim, and that gets devalued. That's what it means that gold is like kalim, all kinds of kalim. If everyone's speaking about large pieces of gold, large chunks of gold, or bars of gold, or whatever, large bars of gold maintain their value. Rashi Amar b'mamala. Mamala Rashi says is like dak shosav. It's also something that's got gold or gold that's mined from the ground. That's also like gold dust, and that gets devalued. That's like any other kalim. Amar b'yanai. B'samim shel antuchya. Now we're talking about things that are very valuable. The spices from Antuchya, they are very valuable. If they put that into the ksuba, and as the father writes into the ksuba, we're giving you this as part of the dowry, and you're responsible for it, and you have to return that. That's like cash. It's so good, it's so valuable that it's like cash, and he can invest that, and he has to write in 50% more to the ksuba. Gamal shel arvaya, Arabian camels, also very valuable. Ishagova parna mehem. She can collect her ksuba from them. Now, what do we mean by that? I'm going with Tos's interpretation because Rashi says parna here means revach shlish. Again, Rashi says that that we talk about golden camel, Arabian camels. It's like the Tuchian spices, which are like cash, and like other cash, or like din rezov cash. You got to increase it by more. And Rashi says Imam Shavavi is also gives her profits from them. You'll get 50% more. Tosa says, what do you mean? The lashon is not the same. It's just say ksafim. If you're talking about that, it's worth 50% more. That's what he has to commit to. So it should say ksafim. Tosa says no. We're talking here about she can collect ksuba. Meaning, normally we've learned this before. Yorshim get whatever's there. You inherit it. Let's say there is no wife. Father dies, left $1 million. We don't care if it's in cash, diamonds, property, clothing, whatever it is. They get everything. Ksuba is not that. Ksuba is meshubah. The security for the ksuba is karka. That's the general idea. These things though are so valuable that she can rely on them. Because karka she relies on, like we had the other day. We had it for a few days already. Cash, she's sure. What do you cash? By the time we get divorced 80 years from now, that cash will be gone, or they'll have other kinds of cash, right? So it doesn't rely on that. But this is so valuable that she would rely on that. That's what Tosas learns, and that's like Ashgova Parnami, and that's the Parnami means collecting the ksuba. Rashi says we're talking about the increase of 50%, but Tosas doesn't make sense. Omra Papi, Hani Tusfi, the Beimachsi, also clothing of that area, Beimachsi, these kind of clothing also very valuable, right? Ishagova Parnami, he collects her parna, and here Rashi is not as clear, but presumably he's going like Tosfos that she likes ksuba. Amar Papi Hani Saki Derudya, valuable Rudya, they had very valuable sacks. Ashli the Kamplina, and Kampunya, they had very valuable ropes, expensive stuff. Ishagova Parnam, and here even Rashi goes back and says he says Lazeshamati, says Rashi. Here I heard we're talking about the ksuba. Minachsi something she collected, even though normally she only collects from karka, not metalflin. Here we don't say that because this is like karka. So Rashi seems to say here I heard that it's ksuba, but in the first one the parn is not the ksuba. It's a little bit strange. But Tosafos makes more sense over here. We're talking about things that she relies on, even though they're not karka. She relies on this. Amarava, I used to think Hani arniki de mechuzah, they would keep large cash deposits and bags of cash. I used to think that a woman would collect her ksuba from there because she relied on that. People kept cash in large sacks. They depended on that. In other words, she figured that her ksuba will be collectible from that because that's always around. Once I saw the shaklelu, that when they get their hands on the cash, they take it enough, they go out to Chimashkichiara. As soon as they find a piece of land that's available on a choresh or anywhere else, they buy it. They use that cash to buy property. Amina, I realized arahu. They only really depend on the karka. As soon as they have any cash, they spend it on land, on nadlan, on real estate, because they don't really rely on cash. So the idea here is that ksubin generally is only collectible from cash, from karka, because that's what they rely on. There are exceptions for other cases where people keep these things and they don't, maybe they don't sell them, they don't get rid of them, and they maintain their value. But generally, ksuba is only collected from karka. That's what she relies on, as opposed to orphans, which collect their yerusha from everything. Let's say a man marries off his daughter, and we've learned before that he is encouraged to give a big dowry, and they write into it that if he has any grandsons, they will collect his ksuba. If his daughter dies, they will get the ksuba over and above shares that their other half brothers get. All that we encourage him. But let's say he marries her off and he didn't say anything, give her a dowry. Each give her 50 zuz, and we'll talk about these are the cheap zuz and not the ones that are worth 8 times as much, the tsuri. These are the cheap zuz. He gives it. That's the minimum. You should give her at least that. Possibly in some room. Let's say he says, "Look, I don't have any money. You understand? I understand you're in the diamond business. The son-in-law, you can support her. I'm sorry, I'm not giving her anything." The husband shouldn't say when I marry her, when I consummate, I will cover her up with my clothing. If that was the agreement, that the father says I can't give anything, I have no money, then the husband should send her clothes, proper clothing, even before they get married. The same thing applies for a man who marries off, like from the public funds, you're marrying off an orphan. That's the minimal amount. In other words, from the kupash staka, or whoever is assigning the money should at least give 50 zuz. If there's more money we'll talk about in the charity fund, if you can afford more, and as if there's more, we're talking about somebody who is being already supported from the charity, right? You're talking about an orphan who has nothing, should at least give 50 zuz. If there's more money in the charity box, you could afford to give more, and they came from a family that was more mechubad, you should try to support this orphan according to the means, according to his lifestyle that he was accustomed to. Amar Abaya. We're talking about simple coins, like the cheaper ones. What's it called? Zuzei Medina, not the Zuzei Tsure, which are only 1/8 of the value. Now, how do we know? Midiktari says because if there's money in the charity fund, you give him. He says her. So I said orphan girl, right? It says because if there's more, you support her according to the manner in which she was accustomed to. But in my case, what do you mean? Rachva explained that to mean Arniki Shostaka, if she's supported from the tzedakah. So it says, if there's more money, you give her more. If you're talking about the 50 zuz that we're talking about, whether it's the 50 zuz that the father should give to his daughter if he can afford it, or the 50 zuz that you give to an orphan girl to marry her off, if we're talking about real 50 zuz, that's a lot of money. So if there's money in the charity, how much do you give her? She's already got it. That's a substantial dowry right there, the 50 big zuzim. We're talking about the 50 zuzim. We're talking about the minimal amount that a father should give his daughter, or that she give a girl from charity, an orphan girl. We're talking about the cheap 50 zuz, not the good zuzim, but the cheap zuzim. And therefore, if there is more money in the tzedakah fund, you can support her there. You do that. Let's say you have both an orphan boy and an orphan girl who are coming for support, and you don't have enough to go around to both of them. You first take care of the girl. Then you give the boy. Because the custom is, it's normal for a boy to go begging. For girls, it was less common in those days to go out begging. It was harder for her. Therefore, we support her first. Obviously, you can support both. You do both. But you first take care of the girl, then the boy. Yasam Yisama, let's say similar thing. Yisam Shaboli Nase. They both need to get married. Again, Masina Yisama, you first marry off the girl. Masina Yasam, then the boy. Not just the collecting, but it's more embarrassing for a girl to be alone than for a boy. A boy can go out and work, etc. It's much easier for a girl, so you take care of the girl first. Man, a boy comes, an orphan comes to get married, he has no money. What do you do for him? Sofalo bias. You first rent a dira for him. First rent an abode, a place to live. And then you get him a bed. And all his necessary needs, all his vessels. The first thing is you have to have a house. You shouldn't, get married, they should be able to have a place to live. So you first give him a house and a bed and other things. And then you find him a wife. Then you marry him off. You make a wedding for him. Shneimar. Pasuk says, if a person's poor, you should support him. Dei machsoro, enough for whatever he's missing. Asher yachso lo, which is missing to him. Those words seem to be extra, right? A little bit redundant. Dei machsoro bias. I'll tell you why you have to have all those words. Dei machsor means the house. Asher yachsar, what she's missing, zemita, that's the bed, the shulchan, and a table, some place to eat on. Lo, says lo, so isha, that's a woman. The woman says, es lo ezer connector. I'll get a woman for him. I'll get for Adam lo a woman. Right, Ezer connector, who will be a help for him. So that's why it says Dei Mechsaro, a house, Asher Yachsar, that's a bed and a table. Lo is the woman. That's the order in which you have to supply him. Dei Mechsarata Masavalav Lefarnasa. You have to give him what he's missing, things that is necessary for him to live. You have to you don't have to make him wealthy. The guy comes and he's poor, so you support him to his basic needs. You don't do more. Asher Yachsar, Asher Yachsala, but what he's missing, what's included what he's missing? If he needs a car. Guy needs a car, right? Get him a cheap car. He needs a horse. He has to go someplace, right? He's got to go to work. The Eved L'Rasafan, somebody to help him. He needs an aid, right? Eved L'Rasafan, Eved to run in front of him, meaning to help him. They said about Hilazak and bent to me for a poor orphan who was the son of good standing people. But now he was poor and alone, so he got for him echad bentu mechad sus lirchavalav, right? Shalakach la'ani bentu mechad from this singular boy sus lirchava, a horse to ride on. The eved l'rasafanav, and he got for him a eved to support him, to help him, to run in front of him. Pamach l'masaf, he couldn't find an eved l'rasafanav of 30 million, and he himself did that, ran 3 miles in front of him. In other words, he took care of him for a while personally. Some say that he did this b'tzina when they were in a place where they didn't know who he was, because if it's a zakar it's improper to do that. But whatever, point is that Hillel took it upon himself to supply the needs of the poor orphan. Maisa b'anshe Galil, the story with the people from the upper Galilee. They took for a poor person who came, a poor kid who came from a good family, Mitzipori from that town, litra basar, let's call it a pound of meat. They got him a pound of meat. Every day they gave him a pound of meat. The Gemara says, litra basar marabusa. So they gave him lunch. What's the big deal? You're telling a story. They gave him a pound of meat. What's the big chiddush in that? So he gave him lunch. Amrafuna litra basar mishalofas. No, they gave him the best of meat. They gave him fowl. Shedemei Karmash is real money. That was, even though he was poor, they gave him a very good, proper meal. Really, by saying a belitra basar, they didn't give him a pound of meat. They gave him meat, which is bought for a litra for a pound of coins. In other words, they spent a lot of money on him. Shiabasar biyoka, the meat was expensive, and they had to spend a lot of money. They did that too, right? By saying a belitra basar mamish. In other words, litra of meat, they spent a litra, a pound of coins. Rashi Amar Hasam Kfar Kartna. I'll tell you what it was. Really, we're speaking about just meat, simple meat, and that wouldn't be such a big chiddush. It was like lunch. But Rashi, there was a small village, and every day they killed the whole animal just for this kid. In other words, there was a small village where there was no market in the meat. There was nobody to sell it to. So every day they had to, they didn't have refrigeration in those days and freezers and stuff. So if you want to give him meat, you had to slaughter an animal each day. You had to slaughter a whole animal just to give him a pound of meat. And as the point is that you have to take care of the poor. Who does like Rav Yechon's man came from the Amalek? Rav Yechon said to him, okay, Mata, so what's your normal meal? You need to eat. What do you normally eat? Amalek, basar shama b'yayin yashin. I eat fat meat and aged wine. I eat very well. So Nechemi said, look, all I have here is lentils. Would you like to eat lentils? I don't have that. I'm not accustomed to that fancy living. All I have is lentils. Gilgalimo. So he did that Ladashim. So that's all he had. So he gave him lentils. Mace. The kid died. I don't know if it was a kid. It was a man. So I used to eating a big fancy meal. And all he had was lentils. He ate the lentils and he died. Amar. Nehemiah said, woe unto this person. Obviously, I killed, not intentionally, but I killed this, this poor guy, he had to live on my food and he died. Why didn't he say, Nehemiah, woe unto Nehemiah? He killed him, he killed him. The answer is not Nehemiah's fault. That's what he should have said. Why did he say, oh, this poor guy that was killed by Nehemiah? Why did he say, oh, to Nehemiah, who killed him? Talking about himself, he should not have pampered himself by living on such a high kulei, such a standard. In other words, the guy doesn't have money. What's he eating all that fancy food and drinking the aged, expensive wine? It was his own fault. He died.
Where was he getting it?
I guess somebody was giving it to him.
Some
Yeah.
other guy. It was
Or
somebody
maybe he
from
used up all his money on the fancy food. Maybe that was, yesterday was just, he spent his last, $2,000 on an expensive meal. He spent all his money on that. So it's his own fault. Who else came for Rav? Amalo, B'mata. So Rav also said, what do you normally eat? Amalo, B'tanagolis Ptuma, a fat, juicy chicken. Yain Yashin. That's what I normally eat. Amalei, are you not worried about about falling on the tzibur, about the difficulty that the pressure you're putting on the tzibur? You don't have any money, and this is what you take the money and you use the money for this expensive food. Aren't you concerned about the difficulty that you are putting on the tzibur if you're used to eating such kind of food and you have no money? Amalei, what am I eating? The tzibur's money? But God gives us the food, right? I'm eating from God. God, the Tanina we learn. We say every day, 3 times a day. The eyes of all wait for you, God. And you give them the food in its time. It doesn't say in its season, like apples in the apple season, oranges in the orange season, wheat in the wheat season. In his time. Hashem gives everybody their own meal in its time. People, Hashem is giving you the food. What do you mean I'm getting to the tzibur? It's coming from Hashem. So Adahachi, while this conversation was going on, Asi after Rava, who was the host here, his sister showed up. He hadn't seen his sister for 13 years, and she showed up. And she brought as a gift Tanagolas Ptuma B'yayin Yashin, just exactly the food that poor person wanted. Omar, Rava said, "My de kamo, look what's going on over here." This is what he asked for, and I don't have that kind of food, and it just showed up. Didn't say, by the way, that Rava didn't have the food. He just said to him, "Don't you think you're pushing things a little bit by demanding such food and putting pressure on the tzibur?" So he says, "Well, the food just showed up now. Obviously, maybe the man has a point that God supplies his food, right? Because this girl, my sister, just showed up with that food that he wanted. I spoke too much. I apologize. Kumachol, get up and eat. Here's your meal. I'm not arguing with you." Tana Rabbanan.
So this is the answer to the guy from money.
Yes.
Get it from God. What do you want from me?
Well, he just he didn't really say that. It wasn't his answer. His answer is, he says, don't you? Rava said, don't you think you're putting too much pressure on the tzibur? And he said, listen, it's from God. It's not from me. Right? It is from God. Yeah. Well, it's through a person, right? It doesn't fall down. It comes through a person. Tanarabana, we're at the second of the widest lines on the page, halfway down the page. Tanarabana, ain't low. Let's say a man doesn't have any money. But he's proud. He doesn't want to take anything from the tzibur. The man's dying. He's starving, but he's too proud to take any food. No snow lishamavos. So you tell him it's a loan. I'll tell you what, we're going to give you a loan. Make him feel good. It's a loan. You'll pay it back. Give him that. Afterwards, they usually don't pay back anyway, right? When it's a loan, they don't pay loans anyway. Then you turn it into a gift. You want to give it to him, he doesn't want to take it as a gift. He's too proud, he's a good man. You tell him it's a loan, and then you convert it into you mochel the loan. That's Rav Meir said. No snow l'shematana. Right away you give it to him shematana. V'chazno l'shum hava. First give it to him as a gift, and then you turn it into hava. Take more l'shematana. He just said, what do you mean give it to him as a gift? He doesn't want to take it. Halo shekel. He won't take it if it's a gift. Amrava liftach l'shum. You first tell him, please take it as a gift, right? If he doesn't take it as a gift, then you give it to him as a matana. In other words, if a man doesn't want to, the Rav Meir said, give it to him as a loan. Don't even start with him. Give it to him, then convert it into a loan. The Chum say you should first offer him as a gift. If he doesn't want to take it as a gift, because that's being straight with him, not telling him it's a loan and then not claiming the loan, but rather tell him first if it's a gift. If he doesn't want to, then you could offer to him as a loan. Yesh lo ve'ein roslas parnas. Let's say, right? Let's say yesh lo ve'ein roslas means here he has money, he has food, he has money, but he doesn't want to use his own. He wants you to give him this meal, right? He has his own money, but he doesn't want to use his own. He wants to take him at Tzibur. No sloan shematani. You give it to him as a gift. You give it to him as a gift, but then you demand it back. You pay now. You get paid back. Sulo shakel, he won't take it again. In other words, if a guy has a custom, he doesn't want to eat from his own money. He always wants to take your money. He always wants to eat from your food. Right? So you say, oh, you give it to him as a gift. You give it to him. What do you give it to him? And then you demand it back. But if you demand it back, he won't take it again, and he's going to starve himself. What do you do? Amar Papa, la'achar misa. After he dies, you claim it. Right? After he dies, you take it back from him. Man's dying. You're so cheap that he won't eat his own food. He only wants to. So what you do is you give it to him, and then you claim it back. You keep a cheshbon. He takes a receipt, and after death, you claim it back from his estate. Shimon Omer,
What kind of gift?
but it's not really a gift. It's not a gift. It's not a gift, but he's going to die. The man's going to die, so that's what you do. But Shimon says no. Yesh leman, so this part is if he has money, he doesn't want to eat it from his own. He wants to take from you. Hey, you don't have to attend to him. Let him die. I mean, why should we have to? I should give it to him to keep him alive, and then I'll take it back from after his death. We give him, we're a balchov. The tzibur balchov. They wrote a receipt. They gave it to him. They gave it to him, claiming, that he took it and he's going to give it back. We told him it's a gift that he shouldn't die. Shimon says, what are you worried about him? If he doesn't want to eat from his own, let him die. If, let's say, he doesn't have, so Shimon says, if he doesn't have any food, doesn't have any money, and he doesn't want to take yours, and we don't want him to die, we take, have a mashkin, make him feel good this way. Tell him, listen, give us a mashkin. You want something? Give us a mashkin. So it means we're showing that we're going to take it back, that it's a loan. Betul. Kadesh is so his feelings should be raised. He should feel good about himself. Oh, in other words, Rashi explains, even if he doesn't have a mashkin, he doesn't know what to give him. He doesn't have anything, right? So they say, give us a collateral, give us a pledge, so we can claim back from him. Even though at the end they said, okay, if you don't have a pledge, give it as a loan. But the fact that they said, give us a pledge, that shows that he feels they're serious enough that they're going to claim it back, and he won't be as embarrassed. He'll feel good about himself that he'll try to pay it back. Tanrabanan. Havei lend him the money. It says Havei Tavitanu Dei Machsu Asher. So you have to lend him the money. Zesha Ein Lo Ve'en Roslas Parnas. Lend him the one who doesn't have, and he doesn't want to take. He doesn't want to take from the tzibur. Lend it to him. Shnos Lam Shema Vav. V'chos Shnos Lam Shema Tani. Give it to him like the Tanakam said before. Ta'avitenu. What's that double ocean? Havei Tavitenu. Zeshi Yesh Lo Ve'en Roslas. And he doesn't want to eat from his own. This Parnas and Roslas Parnas. Shnos Lam Shema Tani. Give him as a gift. V'chos Shema Tani. Like we said before, like Tanakam said before, you claim so the Avedas lend it to a person. That's a person who doesn't have and he doesn't want to take, so give it to him as a loan, and then convert it into a gift. Tavitenu is a person who's starving himself because he doesn't want to eat from his own, so you'll give it to him as a loan, as a gift, to Elu as a loan, as a gift, but then you'll take it back from him after he dies because that's what Yehuda says. The Yehuda is like the Tanakam before. Like Rav Shimon said, if he has money and he doesn't want to eat his own, he wants to come to you. Don't attend to him at all. Let him die. So what's the double lashon for? What's tavitenu if it's not referring to somebody who has and doesn't want to eat from his own? The Rashi speaks about tavitenu just means lend money. Lend money to the person who doesn't have and doesn't want to take. Lend it to him and then convert it into a loan. Marukva, Marukva was a great balstaka, and there was a poor person in his neighborhood. Every day, every day in the door socket, Rav Mokva would come by and surreptitiously, without being seen, would stick 4 zuz in the door socket, the hole there where the door circled around, and the door socket. He would put 4 zuz there. Yomacha, one day, Omar Ezel Echse Man Kavadi. The poor person saw every day there was 4 zuz there. He said, "Let me go check who's giving me that money. I'd like to see who it is that's giving me the money." Baruch wanted to do it b'tzina, right? Matan b'seiser. So this poor person said, one day he said, Ezel, who's doing this good for me? Who's doing me this favor every single day? That day, he was late coming home from Beis Medrash learning. So his wife came to pick him up. He was late, so she went to see where he was. So she went to the base medrash and she escorted him home. Kim the chazua, the kamatzli late. Now, once the poor person saw that now Marukva was now with his wife, and he saw that they were moving Ladasha. They saw him moving. Marukva saw. I mean, not Marukva, the poor person saw that a man and a wife were moving the door there, like they were. It was them. They were the ones who were putting the door. He was running after them. They were covered up. He saw them from far that they were doing it, so he was running after them to seek their identity. They ran away. They didn't want to be seen. They wanted to do total amount of the so that they didn't know that he shouldn't see who gave him the money. He ran. So they ran away from before him. Sooner they came. They went into a furnace. They went into a furnace whose the fire had just been swept out, but the furnace was still hot. It wasn't. They didn't run into a fire, but they ran into a furnace that was still very hot, even though it had been swept out. The Marukva's feet were burning. He was standing there, all trying to hide that the poor person should not see who it was. His wife told him, take your feet, put them on my feet. I'm not being singed. Your feet are burning, mine aren't. So he felt very bad. He said his wife has bigger schuyos than him. It was miraculously his wife wasn't being burned, but his feet were being burned. She told him, no, don't worry, it's not your fault. I'm always at home. And when the poor people come to me, I give them bread, meat, wine. I give them directly the food. They eat directly from me. That's a big schus. You give them at shul. You give them a couple of shekels. They got to take the money, buy the food, etc. Your schus isn't as great. I'm giving them food directly. You're doing it in a roundabout way, not directly, and therefore your schus isn't as great, but you still have a big schus. Michael, why do they go to this extreme, running away from the guy, running into a hot furnace, just so they should not be seen and not by the poor person? Again, not to embarrass them. Damar Mosut, a famous line. Damar Mosut about to be Amarav. Amile Amrav Huna Bar Bizna Amrav Shim Chasidim. Amile Amrav Yochram Shim Yochram. No, Adam Shim Saratzmon Tachbeshes. A person should rather die, burn himself, and be consumed in a burning furnace, not in order not to embarrass somebody. They didn't want to embarrass him because if he would see who they were, it would be embarrassing every time they would look, every time he would see them. And how do we know this? Of course, from the same story from Tamar that she had bia with Yehuda. The Sid Himut says she was being taken out to be burnt at the stake, and she didn't want to. And she said, these are the kalim of the person who had bia with me. And she didn't want to reveal who it was. She says, if Yehuda's not willing to reveal himself, I will die. A person would rather die than embarrass somebody. Another story of Marukva. This was the guy that he gave 4 zuz to every day. The previous story, he put him in the door socket. There was another poor person that he would send 400 zuz to every Erev Yom Kippur. That was a lot of money. Either it'd be a big schus for him to give tzedakah before Yom Kippur, and also because the man would need for the Suda and Erev Yom Kippur, he would send him 400 zuz. One day he sent it with his son. Ramukva didn't take the money himself; he sent it with his son. Also, the son came back. Dad, you didn't have to send the $400. He doesn't need the money. My chazas. What did you see? Why do you know he doesn't need the money? I saw that they were sprinkling old, aged, expensive wine in front of him, just sprinkling in front of him to make a nice aroma in the house. Somebody who lives on that high standard doesn't need your charity. That's what the son said. Amar, whoa. So Mokfa said, Mafanikul, he is so sensitive, he's so particular, so pampered, right? That I'll double the amount. He doubled the amount. In other words, you have to give him the way of life that he's used to, the standard, keep him on a standard of life that he's accustomed to. When Marukva was dying, bring me my charity accounts. I want to check, make sure that I'm up to speed, giving all my charity. It says there, he had 7,000 sianke dinners. It's a lot of money. And he had that money in his account. That doesn't say that he was short, that he was late paying the money. He just said, I got a lot of money there. Amar Zabde clearly, my provisions are scant or small, meaning he was dying. and he said the schluis that I have are scant, not very much. And it's a long road. It was an example. You're going on a long path and you don't have a lot of provisions with you. So here he was saying, like, I'm going on the path, to Olam Haba, and I don't have a lot of schluis with me. Come, he got up, Bizbazay Lapal Gimon, he gave away half his estate to Tzedakah. And then only the other half went to Yorshim. How could you do that? We had back 20 blot ago or 17 blot ago. You shouldn't give more than a fifth of your assets. They say that's for a particular mitzvah, right? You shouldn't give more than a fifth. Why? Because if you give away all your money, you will come to fall upon the tzibur because you'll be poor. So that's when a person's living. Because maybe he'll turn poor if he gives everything away, and he himself will be in need of tzedakah. But here the man was dying, there was no problem. He was might in the Yerusha to his kids, but that he's allowed to do. Pardon? He didn't care about the Yerusha. Right, you don't think he gave it away. He's entitled to give it away. That's what Yerusha said. Rav Abba, another story with the bird Dave Stucker. He would tie the money in a cloth, let's say in a sack or something, and put it on his back, and make himself available to the poor people. In other words, he didn't want to hand the money to the poor people. They shouldn't see who it is, and he shouldn't see them. So he would hang it on his back. Put it in the back so that the Niyam would take from there. But he'd still look a little bit to make sure that the schnorrers who don't need the money, the scoundrels who are the crooks, that they shouldn't take, right? Because if you're saying the guy's got money on his back and he's giving it away, you get attracts all kinds of vermin. He had a poor person that he would send 4 zuz to every Friday. One day she was in a nili biyadvis, and one day he sent it in the hands of his wife. His wife took the money. He wasn't available. He was busy learning. He sent the money with his wife. Also, she came back. He doesn't need the money. Says my chazas. What'd you see? Why'd you see that you say he doesn't need money? Shama, I heard that. They told him, how will you be eating today, sir? Will you be eating with the silver cloths or with the golden cloths? How will you be taking your meal today, sir? That's what they spoke to him. So Amar, so he didn't say, I'm going to double the amount, right? He didn't say that. Amar, says, we should be grateful to these crooks, to the crooks. Listen, be grateful to these crooks. You say they're looking for money and they have their own. It wouldn't be for them. We'd be sinning every day. We'll call you like to a din mishpat. If you don't give money, if you avert your eyes from the aniyim, you'll be considered a sinner. What did he say there? Rav Omer says, if you turn your eyes away from giving tzedakah, it's like you're doing a avodah zarah. Says, whether someone will be you, like you say, you're not gonna give money to the poor when it comes to shemitah, etc. You're going to turn your eyes away, not give them. It says lial because hosam when by avodah zarah it says yotzu anoshim b'nei lial, that people who are without a yoke, the people who are doing avodah zarah, malan avodah chavim, avkan avodah chavim. So the point is, he said that you'll have a sin if you turn your eyes away from giving tzedakah. It's like doing avodah zarah. So why did he say I'm grateful to the Ramon? Because if it wouldn't be for the Ramon, we'd be sinning every day because there's always people that we turn away. We didn't give as much tzedakah as we should have, or we turned away, didn't give them anything. Thank God that some of them are crooks, that we can rely that the reason we don't give everybody is because a lot of them are crooks. Thank God for them. That's what he said. Thank God for the crooks. Because if it wouldn't be for them, if they'd all be honest beggars and we don't give them everything, we're the ones who are bad, right? So thank God some of them are crooks, so it's not so bad. All right, we'll pick up here tomorrow from Tanur. Have a good day, everybody. Shavua Tov.